I mentioned that this movie has great lighting, and so I decided to up the lighting in my backyard. Isn't that nice? That's kind of lovely. Um, and just in case you, and then there's also, by the way, a horse skull. So I can't put an actual animal in the video, but you got a crazy horse skull. So this is nicer. All right, this is gonna be good. Oh, look, this looks this is dramatic lighting. I like it. Um, so Powell hates women. He hates all women, and he has no patience for any of them, and he wants to kill them all. And these guys just why is it him versus the little old lady? Why is it not him versus some big tough guy that saves the kids? Because since his whole thing is hatred of women, it's more satisfying if in the end he is defeated by a woman. All right. But the really scary thing about the movie, actually, I'm going to say something bigger now. I'm going to say something wacky. Movies about serial killers are comforting. Why would he say that? I don't know. I don't know. Serial killer movies are disturbing. I don't know. Movies about serial killers are comforting. Why? Because what movies about serial killers do is they tell you there's evil in the world. You know that. So then they tell you the evil in the world that you know about, it's over there. It's that one guy. And then the serial killer story, is about hunting that one guy, defeating that one guy, and then evil has been defeated. It's comforting because it tells you evil is in one particular place, and all you have to do is find that guy and put him in jail. Solved. Or kill him, or defeat him, or whatever. Stories may be scary and have demons and monsters, but fundamentally, you defeat the monster, problem solved. The problem with evil in the real world is that, yes, there are serial killers, but they're pretty rare. And evil in the world doesn't always look like a serial killer. The problem is that evil in the world looks like your grandma, who's a really nice old lady, but she hates Koreans. That's a whole other thing, right? Because how do you deal with? Because you know what the evil of the serial killer is. It's difficult to fight a serial killer, I guess, and certainly you've seen movies where it's very hard. So serial killers are hard to fight. But fundamentally, you can just get them and defeat them, and it's over. But if the evil in the world is your grandma, your perfectly nice grandma who's so sweet but she hates Koreans, that's a different kind of evil. It's hard if you know people like this that you love, but they're like kind of racist. It's harder to solve that problem. That's a much more difficult thing. It's a much more difficult thing to sort of fix. So what this movie does is something a little bit like that, which is that it says, here's the bad man, here's the evil person. Reverend Powell is a bad guy. Reverend Powell is a bad dude. But what makes him bad? He hates women. He just hates them. He has he feels they're evil. And again, and his reasoning for this. So he hates women. But why does he hate women? Well, he's a religious guy. It's interesting that he's Christian, sort of. He's like a weird kind of, Christian, or he reads the Bible or whatever. Old Testament? I don't know. He's obviously not Jewish. So he's Christian. But one of the reasons why someone who studied the Bible a lot might start to think all women are evil is because if you know the Bible, Eve is the from the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve. You know the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible. Eve, the first sin in the world, is committed by a woman, by Eve, because God puts Adam and Eve. God creates the world, and He creates Adam and Eve, and He puts them in paradise, and He says you can do whatever you want, but don't eat the fruit off that one tree. And then He says, and then Eve does. She's convinced by a serpent then that's more complicated, but she's convinced by a serpent to eat, but she eats the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which God said not to do, and then Adam joins her, and then they get kicked out of paradise, and then death is introduced in the world, and labor is introduced in the world, and time is all these terrible destructive forces, pain and all of these things suddenly. So it's possible to read the Bible and come to the conclusion that because Eve is the mother of all humanity, and because she is the origin of sin, then all women must be evil. So it's interesting to me that Reverend Powell, his Christianity is connected to his hatred of women. There are a lot of religious groups seem like they hate women an awful lot. They don't treat them like equals. They treat them like servants. And obviously there's lots of good ways to do religion, and I'm sure you can do it a good way. But a lot of religious groups give women like a secondary status or a lesser status or a lower status, and they don't care what a woman is supposed to be subservient to the husband. A woman is supposed to be a helpmate to the husband. Women be subject to your husband. And so the fact that he's getting his hatred of women from the Bible um, makes it's not, remember I said serial killers stories are comforting because evil's over there and you just have to defeat him. Well, in this movie, evil isn't Henry Powell, and he does get defeated. But where did he get the evil from? Well, he may have gotten it from the Bible. That's a book a lot of people read, and a lot of people kind of think a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit like Powell. They also, a lot of religion kind of teaches people that women are not to be trusted. Women are dangerous. He calls the old lady the whore of Babylon. It's like a little old lady. She's not a whore. But he sees all women as modeled on the evil. Whore of Babylon is another evil woman in the Bible, satanic almost. So the evil in the world isn't defeated by defeating Reverend Powell, because that hatred of women is all over the place. What's really upsetting and sad and depressing, it is very much in the movie, in characters that are not Reverend Powell, characters that are supposed to be nicer, and they're kind of not. Or they're nice, but they don't seem to like women very much. So, for example, John's dad. He's not in the movie for very long. He robs a bank, and you don't even see him rob the bank. He just tells you he robbed a bank, and he shoves the money, he gives the money to the kid, and says he got to keep a secret. Why does he give the money to John and not to Shelley Winters, his wife? He says, "Your ma ain't got no common sense. You got to keep the money." This is a husband who wants to care for his children, but he doesn't think his wife is trustworthy enough to do. And she's not great, obviously, so I get it. But like, it's interesting that the very brief time he's on screen, he doesn't seem to like or tries to trust his wife very much. He trusts his young son significantly more than his grown-ass wife. Just a little bit of misogyny in there. Not a lot, just a little. But it's in lots of characters. Icy is obviously a terrible human being. She says something really interesting, though, which is when she's talking about she's talking at the picnic. She gives Reverend Powell a chance to kind of go. She gives Reverend Powell and Shelley Winters a chance to spend some time together. And then she's talking about sex. She makes a joke about a man's the kind of thing you don't know till you get it home and get it unwrapped. Like when you buy something and you don't know what it looks like till you take it out of the packaging at home. But that's about taking clothes off. And then she says something like, women weren't supposed to enjoy that. Not really. That's for the man. Every time I have sex with my Walt, I just lay there. She doesn't say sex, but every time I'm with my Walt, I just lay there and think about the canning. So like she thinks sex is something for men, and it's something for men to enjoy and women to endure. And she's saying this at a picnic in front of a bunch of people. So obviously, there's no shot of people being like, that Icy, she's crazy. I think that her view is a kind of standard view that sex is something for men to enjoy and for women to endure. And it really sets the tone for this movie, because it's really interesting that she sees sex as the same kind of sort of vaguely repulsive thing that Reverend Powell does. The evil in Reverend Powell is also in Icy Spoon. And by the way, it's no coincidence that at the end of the movie, she picks up an axe and is ready to kill somebody with it. She's ready to axe murder someone to death at the end of this movie. She's very excited to get the chance to hack someone to pieces in the big mob crowd scene at the end. So that kind of misogyny is also in her. It's also in Birdie. Birdie's like a nice guy, but Birdie says, John says, "Oh, I'm looking after my sister." And Birdie says, "Boy, there's no limit to the kinds of things a woman will load on a man's back when he's not looking." Like, screw you, Birdie. Like, Birdie is complaining that women give men too much to do. And in this case, Shelley Winters has given John too much to do. But it's a statement about, like, all women everywhere. Don't women always give you too much to do? Aren't they the worst? Don't you wish you could get away from them? The evil that's in Reverend Powell is in Icy Spoon, and the evil that's in Reverend Powell is in Birdie, and the evil that's in Reverend Powell is in the Bible. It's so these multiple characters who have these kinds of these very kind of scary anti-sex, anti-women stuff. Okay, cool. We'll pick it up in the next video.